one of the things I used to love to do as a leader is have my team bring really difficult problems to our team calls because it gave me a chance to lead the team through a problem that they're often all going to face. And if nothing else, help start instilling how to work through adversity, just the basic principles of it.
Hey, how's it going? You're listening to Relationships at Work, a leadership podcast helping you build workplace connection, improve culture, and avoid blind spots. I am Russel Lolacher. I'm the host. This is my show. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm a communications and leadership expert with a couple of successful decades under my belt in both those areas and a whole heap of curiosity, just like you, on how we can make the workplace a better place. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to do, both you and I. And hopefully this podcast, this series of conversations will help you. That's right. This week, we're into adversity. Adversity is a tough one because we all have to go through some level of it in our careers. And it's how we show up that really, really matters. It's a 4-part conversation. Monday kicked off clarity and definition. Like, what is adversity? What are we even talking about? Tuesday, yesterday, was around mindset. How do we show up when adversity rears its ugly, ugly head? Well, today's part 3, which means we're going to be talking about how we introduce adversity to our teams, how we help them turn those adversarial moments, challenging moments, into opportunity. Because that's the whole point here. It's not just about adversity, it's what we do with it and how could we make it into an opportunity. And my guest this week, Whitney Faires, has some tips, some tricks, some mindset shifts that may help you on your own leadership journey. So let's jump right back into the conversation. Hold on. How do you take everything we've talked about and translate it to your team? Because a team can have adversity, a team can have setbacks, but your team might not have the leadership training, the self-regulation. They're also feeling the energy of other team members. So as a leader, we have to come in and sort of, do we regulate it? Do we acknowledge it? Like, how do we approach it when it's in a team setting?
Yeah. I'll give you an answer, but I will say it is highly dependent on the team and the people, right? As I look back, I've led numerous teams. I don't know if I could say it's exactly the same way for every team, but here's what I would say is, one is I think you have to normalize adversity. So it's something that, first of all, we have to emotionally regulate ourselves. If when that adversity pops up, we don't lead by example, that is the number one thing that we have to do for it to be successful. Otherwise, we're saying something, but we're doing something else. And that's going to be no good for our people. So we lead by example. We normalize it. Hey, like this is a doable problem. Let's talk about, here's the process we're going to follow to get through it. So I think you teach them the process to follow. And now if someone's coming to me one-on-one on my team, then obviously it's that one-on-one dynamic. But one of the things I used to love to do as a leader is have my team bring really difficult problems to our team calls because it gave me a chance to lead the team through a problem that they're often all going to face. And if nothing else, help start instilling how to work through adversity, just the basic principles of it. And I think that in those moments, our job is to be able to help them keep that perspective. So when someone's super emotional about something, and you can tell they're like really fired up, it's hold on. Let's pause for a second. What's truly the impact of this thing that we're facing? I know it feels big. I know it feels like we've messed up or whatever it is, but what's truly the impact? Is that so bad? Can we overcome this? And you have to kind of bring them back and give them some perspective along the way.
You touched on something I like to bring up quite a bit on the show is that we don't have teams. We have groups of individuals. And to address it, as to your point, where it's a one-on-one, a lot of leaders will go, I have a team I have to address. I'm like, no, you have 7 to 30 individuals dealing it and with processing it in different ways based on experience, geopolitical, like everything. So to have those one-on-ones actually will help the health of the individuals, which will bring it back to the larger team. So I love that you highlighted that because we look at it as this homogenous team. I'm like, no, there's diversity within the diversity, and it has nothing to do with skin color or capabilities. It is the individuals of it.
Mhm.
But when we address that, I'm curious, do we address it differently based on the scope of that adversity? For example, we just sucked at a multi-million-dollar project launch versus you didn't send an email when I asked you to. Now somebody, an executive, is pissed at us. There is, what do we approach it in the same way, or do we look at it differently based on scope?
Oh, I think you have to look at it differently based on scope. Certainly the urgency, the magnitude, all of that is gonna be different if we didn't send an email versus we failed at a product launch and we lost a lot of money. Again, I think the process is generally the same in the sense of you kinda have to feel the emotions, but be able to separate them, scope it out, understand your impact and your way forward. But I certainly think there's a lot more when there's more complexity or more impact, there's a much greater debrief that's happening to really understand the cause and effect. Because I'm not proposing that we just want to get through it and be like, "Oh, it's all okay. We got through it. We're good." No, I mean, it's learning. And as long as it feels a productive learning moment, then I think we're okay. I don't want to do the debrief and be pointing fingers at everybody, but also you don't want to say, "Oh, well, we did our best." So you have to be able to help people see, how will we do it differently? What led to us making that decision? Where could we have maybe jumped in sooner? And so our ability to ask those questions in a way that helps people understand and learn versus points the finger is really critical.
And you've led me directly into the next question I was kind of curious about, was communication. So, I mean, I'm hearing tone, I'm hearing gravity or gravitas based on the scope of it. How are we communicating with our teams, trying to be transparent without avoiding panic too, when it comes to some of these? Because we talked about emotional regulation. And as leaders, if we can communicate in a way that doesn't trigger some of these things,
Yeah.
how would you recommend that we communicate?
So it's very dependent on the people. And when you're
Mm.
in a team setting, you obviously you can't say it six different ways if you got six people on your team. So you gotta make that judgment call. I'm gonna say, let me back up and say one of the questions I ask everybody when they join my team, I ask them a couple questions. One is, how do you like to receive feedback, or what's the best way that you like to communicate? I can ask them those two things because that way, in the moment, I know in advance how this person likes to be communicated with, especially when it comes to feedback or a tough message. And I always tell them, I appreciate that. I'll do my best to do that when I can. Sometimes I won't be able to. Sometimes it's going to be, I'm going to have to flex to a different style, but I appreciate knowing that. So that enables me when I'm one on one to be very thoughtful about how I'm communicating it. And I think as a leader, when you can flex to meet that person's needs, style, I do it. In a group setting, I think the best thing to do is you got to check your emotions. There can't be emotions. And a lot of times, and I learned this personally because I'm a very high energy person, it's not about what you intend, meaning, well, I didn't intend that to be intense and very be jumping on top of them with how I said that. It's about how you actually make them feel, right? So when I say you got to check the emotions, it's not just how you're feeling, but it's how you're communicating the emotion. So be sure that your tone is calm, your pace isn't too fast. You don't want to be monotone, you want to be yourself, right? But be very mindful that the way you say it isn't artificially increasing the emotions that's being perceived by the team. And I think like you're gonna know how they respond. You got to read the room, look at their faces. If it's quiet and they're all like, then hey, let me make sure you're hearing what I actually was intending to say. What did you hear me saying? And then you can course correct if you need to. Does that answer the question?
It does. It does. Because I mean, it's everything. So my huge major things. Wow, Russell, way to speak. Self awareness, situational awareness, communication. I think are the cornerstones to any great leader. And you've
Yes.
touched on all three of those. Absolutely, touched on all three of those. My curiosity is the resilience piece of it, because you'll get these high performing success after success after success teams, and then they have that big failure, and the motivation is shaken. that preparation for that next setback, that gun shyness, that risk aversion starts sinking in. How do we navigate that?
Yeah. I tell people that you are your single greatest champion or enemy. I mean, it's the truth. And I think it comes down to a mindset. Is I often take people back and I say, okay, so we had this big miss. Like we had this epic failure. It is what it is. And I'll tell it like that. I will be totally transparent. But at the same time, I want you to go back to the last 5 years of your career. And I want you to tell me all of the wins you had and all of the failures like this. Because history typically repeats itself. And they're going to have some other quote unquote failures or misses, but they're going to have a lot more wins. And I'm like, you can choose to live and die on this one scenario, or you can choose to believe in the history of your performance. What do you want it to look like? How do you want to go forward? Because it's all about you. It's not what I say. It's about you. And that's good because it's not me blaming you. It's me saying you are empowered to decide how it goes next. I believe in you. Do you believe in you? And that mindset piece is pivotal to resilience and how they go forward.
I like that you're inspiring self-curiosity in them as a leader, going, oh, I'm being curious as a leader, but you need to know you as well. Self-awareness is something you also need to own, and you'll understand your resiliency and what motivates you personally to get through that next obstacle. And that we're putting a pin in. That is the third part of our 4-part conversation on adversity to opportunity. This is Relationships at Work, a leadership podcast helping you build workplace connection, improve culture, and avoid blind spots. I am the host of the show, Russel Lolacher. Thank you once again for joining me. And gratitude, appreciation. You are prioritizing your leadership. You're prioritizing your learning. Huge, because I don't know if we do that enough because we're so busy doing a million other things, and then we get burnt out and tired and we don't have the mental capacity to do those things. So for you to take that time and to listen and to learn when you can and when you have that ability, that's huge. So thank you for making Relationships at Work a part of that, a part of your journey, as it were. So yeah, anyway, I'm just going to leave it with a lot of gratitude today. That feels like the right way to leave it. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. We're going to get more into that adversity. But what happens when we're in a culture that may have a different view of that than we do? We'll talk about it tomorrow. Take care.